the Prison City Podcast. When the bars go up, you're officially locked in.
And ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Prison City Podcast. I am your host, Patrick Cutler, and we have a tremendous show here coming up. We're going to talk about Redgate. We're going to talk about mask mandates. We're going to talk about a lot of stuff here, folks. We're going to talk about the prison lights at night. Are they offensive? Are they not offensive? Who knows? Anyways, I'm going to go around the table as I unmute everybody single-handedly, one by one. And I guess it says asked to unmute. This first show I've done, not sure what that means. The first person I'm going to unmute that's in part of the show is Kelly Cutler. I'm going to ask to unmute you right now and go ahead and join on in. Can I just hit the unmute button? Ask to unmute. There we go. All right, here we go.
As you can see, I'm pretty nervous. I just hope I don't shit my pants during this podcast.
All right, there's Kelly Cutler, and then we go down to Mahomes. I'm going to ask him to unmute Mahomes right now. Go ahead, join the show.
Hi, everybody. Really excited to be here. And for anyone who stumbled upon this thinking, hey, I can't wait to hear all about prison life. Boy, do I have good news for you. That's not what this is at all.
And last but not least, I'm going to unmute Jay Marsh.
If you didn't know, I wanted to stay muted. I don't want my voice to be heard. But, two in the pink, one in the stink or something gay like that. What's up, boys?
Strong open for Jay Marsh. Very strong open.
All right, guys.
What a first impression to our listeners.
Well, that's not offensive.
Where's my drug dealers at? Hop on, we'll see you in 6 months.
All right, guys, we're here on to talk about the horror film Redgate, which Cutler Brothers Productions just filmed. I was the director, Kelly's the producer. It's been a horror film we've wanted to do for a long time. So I'm going to go kick it to Mark. Oh, what do you know about Redgate the film and Redgate the folklore in Deer Lodge?
Redgate, for me, there was a 3-man show I was in a long time ago, and we had a musical number. And we kind of went over Redgate a little bit. And I believe if you remember the tune, we ended with Redgate is a fictional story. And so those are like some prime time stuff for me. I also, Redgate was a documentary too, right? I want to say in 05, 06-ish time frame. And I actually saw that movie in a Helena movie theater and just laughed my ass off because it had a bunch of local characters in there, people that we all grew up with. So seeing that,
let me cut you off. Hey, let me cut you off right there. You saw, I didn't know the Redgate, the Alien film, which totally sucked. I thought that was just screened in Deer Lodge. That was screened in. You watched that in Helena?
Yeah, Helena has this Myrna Loy Theater where they do these film festivals every now and then. And so this guy, whoever made the film, came and produced it like he was, at some huge film festival, rolled out, went up and did a big speech beforehand. And I mean, I laughed my balls off through the entire film.
You know what was really funny though, in Helena was your football career.
I know. That's pretty funny. And it's a bold thing to say for a guy whose post-high school career was shorter than one of his Facebook posts.
All right, staying on subject here. Jay Marsh, your thoughts on Redgate?
That's the end of the podcast right there, right?
Dude, that's hard mic drop.
Yeah, drop the mic.
Yo, Mahoney, get out of here. You won. This is your game.
All right, Jay Marsh, what about Mahoney's football career? No, just kidding. About Redgate.
Okay, first off, part A, football career. Coach who won 6 natties used him as a recruitment tool for me. Granted, I was an all-state player, but I was fat. But once again, recruitment tool, huge, more so than the rest of the Cutler family, I could say. But again, I always heard of some true story about some murder, in the woods or something. I'm a little young for it, but that's all I kind of know about it.
All right,
quick shout out to Jay Marsh for working in that he was all-state football 5 minutes into the first podcast.
Okay, never mind. Mute his ass. Get him out of here.
The Prison City roast.
I know. God, this was always going to turn into a roast very, very soon. All right, kicking it to Kelly. You are the actual producer of this shithole film called Redgate. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, it's a film that we dreamt up like 2 weeks before we shot it. No, Pat's been wanting to do a horror movie for some time, and he's been dropping hints or lines or whatever he's been writing on the script and stuff. And we just decided one day, COVID really helped us, because it was like, what else are we going to do? There's not a lot you can do. Let's go out in the middle of the woods, in the middle of nowhere, and let's film this movie. And it just kind of came together, and it's kind of to the point where, just say you're going to do something and go do it. We didn't really have any other choice. We're creative people, and we wanted to explore those avenues. And theater was different in 2020. So we said, let's go film a fucking horror movie,
Yeah, so behind the scenes here, Kelly fully backed it financially through the SBA loans. We got the free government cheese and everything. Was you say, in a way, the government was actually the producer. Would you say that?
They could be. I don't know where the money came from. It just appeared one day.
But anyways,
it's not hard to come up with $700 to produce a movie.
Anyways, Kelly, our most successful films, Kelly has kind of taken on the role of the producer. I've been a director of films and things of that nature. Redgate is based on a lot of folklore. So, the actual Redgate tale, I'll tell this for everybody. Unless somebody else wants to tell the actual Redgate original folklore tale. Anybody? All right.
There's so many, I don't know which one to start with.
So a little tear goes in my eye right now. No. So I'm going to tell you a story now, and I was on a podcast earlier, and this is really fucking crazy. So the original Redgate story is outside of the town of Deer Lodge, Montana, there is back in the day, there was a small little town called Emery. And Emery they're way up in the mountains. They have fucking cabins. They have a boarding school. They have a mine they're working at. The kids would go to the boarding school during the day. The husbands would go work at the mine, everything else. And basically, a lot of the women were teachers or whatnot. One day, a guy who's working in the mine, he had a nice piece of farm property up there. He comes home from the mine one day, and he almost just loses his mind, kills his wife, kills his 2 kids, and then he ends up taking the blood of his family and painting the gate on his farmland red. So that's the original Redgate story. However, the game continues. So we're here with Cutler Brothers Productions, and we're doing a play that was like 4 or 5 years ago. And we have an actress in our play, and she's in our play and everything, and she's doing really well. And she goes home, and again, this house is not. She goes home. This house is her husband's a little bit weird. The house is out of town. It's not too far from where Redgate actually happened or whatever. And her husband comes home, loses his mind, kills her, kills the 2 kids, puts them all in one bed, lights the entire house on fire, and then kills himself. And that is a true story, which mimics the exact tale of Redgate. Who is not creeped out right now?
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And that the lady that died, that was murdered, was actually supposed to be in our production of To Kill a Mockingbird. This was 2015. And she was murdered 5 days before that happened. And my mom came to the theater and we rehearsed, and she didn't show up, which was weird because she was like diligent. She was always on time, punctual, everything, And she didn't show up. And then my mom showed up 2 hours later, and she says, I got some bad news. I was in the middle of directing. So I said, well, how bad is it? And then she goes, it's really bad, And then she told me that. And that's just the biggest freaking mind blow of my entire life.
How often you sit there and say, I got some bad news, Mahomes. The actress is going to be in your play. Well, she can't be in it because there was a quadruple homicide and they burnt their house to the ground.
I mean, not often, but Deer Lodge is a weird place. So nothing you say that happens in Deer Lodge would surprise me. I guess without giving up too much about the film, do you incorporate both sides of that story, or which way do you lean in the actual film?
So the film is really freaking cool in that we involve it's a mix. There's a big storytelling session. We involve folklore from Deer Lodge myths, folklore from real events happening. There, if you watch the film, there's a lot of injection of things there that you're like, okay, man, that really happened. And then you go into like another myth. So another myth about Duroc is everybody that grew up in Duroc, and J Marsh, you can chime in here if you've heard this or not. Duroc, to a certain extent, they say was cursed because there was some kind of Indian massacre and burial ground here. So, and the Redgate goes into the history of Duroc very deep. At some point, the founding of Duroc, before it was actually founded, and I did the research when I was creating this film, they were called these people that were called the Métis people, and they were kind of like half French, half Native American, and they founded a place called the Spanish Fork right on like the fucking Clark Fork River, and they were there, and you can say they're seasonal, but they were there the entire time, and Grant Course and everything comes down and whatnot, and he found a garrison. So Grant Course Ranch, that's, to me, just based on history, it's a little bit of a bullshit because Grant Course founded the ranch and all these different things. And what happened was, Johnny Grant was Johnny Grant. Garrison, Montana is actually named after Johnny Grant. He founded Garrison. The Métis people in history, which is weird, you can look this up, they just kind of disappeared out of nowhere. It's like, well, what the fuck happened to them? J Marsh, take the stand.
Like, my brief history of the area is kind of just almost goes back to the Grant Course Ranch. So like, I had no idea about the whole Indian background behind it. That's insanely fascinating. I had no idea. That's cool. They don't talk about it in grade school, being the youngest here. They don't go over that part of it.
You know what they don't, Kelly? Because the winners write the history books.
Yeah,
is...
I felt like you were just doing my monologue from the film right there. It was almost word for word.
Everybody got to preview the real film, but this is some in-depth details about the film I haven't exposed in any other podcast, and I think it's a worthwhile discussion because all of us growing up in Duroc, Montana, we all hear these rumors and these myths and everything else, and then we watch these realities, the truthful things happen in front of our eyes. It's like, holy mother of God.
Yeah. And to go back to Mahone's question is I think you meant how much of that quadruple homicide was part of the film. Is that right?
Yeah.
Because I don't like, it's about a lot of those different stories, but that particular story I don't think is really weaved in there. I mean, it's a horror film, definitely, but would you say that any part of the film had hints of that story, Pat?
I wouldn't necessarily say that because we don't even mention that. We mentioned the Redgate story. We mentioned a lot of different things. I would say it goes through a lot of things where Kelly is one of the lead characters, and he's talking about these different folklore, and everybody's like, "Oh, these stories are total bullshit." So that's the great thing about the film is like, how many of the stories the Kelly's character tells are bullshit? How many are those that are actually true? Because the other lead character comes in and says, well, a lot of this is true. A lot of this is true. And it kind of leaves the other actor. So he brings up two girls from basically New York, California. And at the end, they're like, well, how much of that was actually true? Because now it's kind of fucking playing into our heads. So once it plays in their heads, it plays in the audience's heads. It's like, well, what is actually true here? And we know something's going on, but when you can make a storyline where you don't know who the fucking villain is, it's going to kill him. I mean, it's pretty creepy.
So how long did you spend writing this? Was this something that you cracked on? And I know, again, without giving up too much, but this is kind of behind the scenes stuff that I think is cool, that maybe if anyone who's made it this far kind of gets that we're talking about an independent film, right? Like, this is pretty unique because of the way you shot this. This wasn't necessarily some fancy studio. You guys just went out into the woods and made a fucking movie, right?
So yeah, it's freaking crazy. Now I'm going to tell you something that nobody besides Kelly knows this. So I was writing this in Alaska, and again, Kelly talked about it. I want to do a horror film again. You were an Enigma, a very successful film.
But short film.
Yeah, we went out and tried a horror film. We'll go back to the story here in a little bit. We went out and tried a horror film, it failed, and I think for a long time, I want to do another horror film. Kelly wanted to do another horror film. We had gone back and forth about it and everything else. A couple of years ago in Alaska, I started writing the Redgate script. So I started writing this script a couple of years ago in Alaska. And I start out, and my idea is this old 1970s van flies across the screen under these mountains. It's going up in the mountains, right? And my opening script says, July 12th, 1973. So me and Kelly, we work. We're trying to get a van. We were just down to like the final days to get a van. We finally get a van, and guess what? The van was made in 1973.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah. So that was a sign that's like, okay, that's like a Deer Lodge type thing. It's like, this is creepy. Like, how is that possible? So, but to go on with it though, I picked up writing. It's been written. It's been a script I've been working on for a couple of years. It went from a lot of different things. Originally, the script was about the actual Redgate folklore story, myth or not. Originally, that was what it's about. I went to a bunch of different tales and things and whatnot, and then I kind of end up with the script today, which we filmed, 8 months ago or whatever. But I ended up coming to the conclusion I wanted to make something so realistic and so out there. And we're hiking up in these lakes in the middle of nowhere. You can only get up there by foot or like a four-wheeler. There's no people around. Nobody can hear you scream. And I use this gigantic wide angle lens, and it just has that. People have that film, that claustrophobia, you can't get away from something. This has the opposite film. So one of the things is like I worked out in Pittsburgh for the Steelers, and this guy came up to me. He's like, man, yeah, I went to Montana. And once I came over that bend or whatever, I looked up and the sky was so wide, it gave me like vertigo. It's so open. And that's kind of where I want this film to be. It's like so open. It's so weird and so open that it just kind of makes that feeling that you're there watching it live as it happens. On to you, Jay Morris. What do you think about that theory and everything else we've talked about?
Well, it sounds like it's a very beautiful story, minus the horror, killings, and 1,000 years of history of just people getting murked in the valley. But it's like, how could you convince people to like want to go to the mountains for this week or two you were there while filming, and to like not go crazy, especially if some of the actors, actresses aren't from the area, they're not maybe used to living outdoors for a while. Like, how'd that go about with like the cast and crew?
So yeah, the truth is it didn't go about very well. You can ask Kelly. I will say this: the cast, the crew for the first time I've ever done a film, the crew was phenomenal, all-star effort, very good. And this is a crazy backstory. Is like we had actors, they weren't from California like in the movie kind of portrays them, but they were from kind of Missoula, and they had been out in New York, and they were stage actors. And this is one of the things that Kelly says about the difference between stage acting and a movie. Stage, you're in a nice, warm, comfortable theater. All the sets, the props, everything's delivered to you. It's very comfy. Out in the middle of freaking nowhere, and these actors and actresses that were in this film, they had never been up there before. I'd only been up there like once before in my life, pretty much. And so we have them, and again, this was not a hidden secret. We had them walk all the way up there. They hiked while we had to get the crew and the gear and everything hiked up there with the vehicles and stuff. They hiked all day. We filmed some stuff, and then this is where it gets great. We leave. It's really windy up there that night. We leave them up there, and so has anybody ever seen the Stanford Experiment?
The Stanford Experiment?
Yes.
Like the whole prison guard?
Yes.
Prisons? Yes.
Yeah.
So if you guys know the Stanford Experiment, the idea was they got like 10 kids to be prison guards, and they got like 20 people to be the actual prisoners. It was like this big social experiment, and that they end up fighting, and that the experiment got so out of control they just stopped it. What I want to do is like a Stanford type experiment in the middle of the hills, in the middle of nowhere, where I am dictating to the actors and actresses exactly what happens or doesn't happen. And they're in their own separate camp. So they had a camp for the actors and actresses where they just rehearsed their lines that night, and they camp for us. And where it comes in, where kind of the Stanford Experiment is, they don't get their actual script that they're going to do the next day until like the night before. So they don't know what they're going to do until the night before, and they're on their own. So we're not up there to baby them. So they're on their own up there on this lake. It's windy, everything else. They're completely on their own, and us knowing that area and stuff like that are down in another base camp called Stonyville with all the camera crew and stuff. So the very first night we're up there. This was not intentional of me whatsoever. I did not plan this at all. In Stonyville, so Stonyville is below these big lakes, and that's where our base camp was. And we put them up at Lake Carruthers, which is the highest lake that we were going to. And out of nowhere, we have these big, high-rising vehicles that can drive in that big, rough terrain. And these guys are from Missoula. They're all a bunch of liberals from Missoula, and they're like waving Trump flags, and these trucks are have these big Trump America flags and all this stuff. And I stopped after 4 or 5 vehicles. We stopped. And I was like, "Hey, what's up? What are you guys doing?" And it's like, "Oh," and it's like, "Oh," I was like, "Yeah, there's just 4 or 5 of you, right?" And they're like, "No, there's like 50 of us." I was like, "What? There's 50 of you in the middle of nowhere going up to this lake in the middle of the night? Are you serious?"
And the actors that were staying up at Crothers, who left them up there, like Pat said, they truly thought that we planned this shit. It was, I think it was 28, 29 vehicles that passed, Jeeps. I mean, there was like minivans that were jacked up like frickin' Warren Sapp on steroids, you know?
So imagine you've never been to this lake. This lake is in the middle of nowhere. The elevation's over a mile and a half high or whatever. And you're in this little tiny tent, the wind's hitting you like crazy. And all of a sudden, these big, scary vehicles out of nowhere, and you're far left, liberal, whatever, coming up with Trump flags, America flags, and 56 of them come across your tent. They were scared beyond their belief for something that I envisioned in my head for the Stanford Spear, but never, ever actually envisioned that happening. And they were saying the entire time, "I bet Pat is behind this."
And they didn't just, they didn't just pass by them. There's not that much room up there at that lake. So they parked literally all around their tent and stuff and stayed up pretty much all night, campfires, fishing. I mean, I would have been scared shitless too, just like this is fucking planned, like no one goes up there.
Like, imagine being like someone dropped in an unknown location, Crothers, which is almost towards the base of the peak of Mount Powell, which is like what 10-2 or something like that. Just like imagine like, I don't know, 50 people coming up, middle of nowhere, and now you got to be friends, or it's gonna be a really awkward situation.
And so, just so I can like confirm before, no one was actually murdered, right?
Hey, they weren't murdered, but they feared for their lives.
What a weird thing. Like, why the hell were they going up there? Did they ever give an explanation? Like,
it's actually on YouTube, to tell you the truth. I wish I knew the exact name, but it's like Extreme Tours or Extreme Vacationers or something. It's on YouTube, and you can see us because we were down there drinking beer and shit, and we were guessing their license plates because they were literally from everywhere: South Carolina, Montana, California, you name it. And we're like, if you guess the license plate, you got to drink a beer. So if you look on YouTube, you can see us, and they're like, "Oh, there's some crazy fuckers out here tonight." They thought we were the crazy people,
Yeah.
I just got a report from Young Jim. It was called like four-wheeler off-road.
Four-wheeler off-road. Okay.
Oh.
Yeah.
So it was crazy though. So the most insane thing, Mahomes, is that like the vehicles like weren't just from like Montana. They're from New York, California, South Dakota, North Dakota, like everywhere. They're Alabama plates. We were placing bets on the who could guess the plates right or whatever. So the next day, I walked probably, because I was the director, cinematographer for the whole thing. I probably walked like 500 miles up there when I was shooting this, because every morning I would get up and walk up to the lake, because I was shooting it, and a lot of times it'd be like one-on-one shooting and stuff like that. So the next day I was walking up, and there's this photographer, and she's taking pictures of the vehicles as they're coming down. I'm walking up there super early in the morning, like 6 o'clock in the morning, 7 o'clock, whatever. And I just asked, like, "Hey, what's going on here? This is really bizarre." She's like, and she said, "Yeah, we're like off-road country. This is an off-road country tour where a lot of people get together, do these off-road country tours or whatever. And then this magazine or online site takes pictures of this entire thing to promote their products and stuff."
Like, and to keep like the terrain, just like the road, which is kind of like an old bean 2-track. It's like there's a certain sections where it's strictly rock climbing.
Yes.
Like that's essentially what you're doing. It's not like a nice smooth uphill. This is like.
Have you been up there, Jay Marsh?
Yeah.
Have you been up there?
I went to Crothers probably 2 years ago was the last time I was up there. But no, me and the buddy that I went with, we had to like rip trees out of the cart path with his Jeep, and we had to like put the like natural drive shaft back in his Jeep like halfway up because it fell out.
Wow.
Like, no, it's some fairly intense terrain. It's not by any means as smooth.
And here's a side note. I bought a Jeep specifically for this movie. Like, that's one of the biggest costs, if you will, for the film, because I'm like, we have to get shit up there, you know. And it was fucking hard. And me and Pat were just talking yesterday about when you start on that path itself, it's like, what the fuck are we doing? You're driving over literal boulders, and this is in the first 100 yards. You're like, we got 5 miles of this shit. It's stressful, man.
So I mean, add that all in. It's beyond insane to see 56 vehicles out of nowhere in the middle of the night. I don't know what they did the rest of the day, in the middle of the night, going up this freaking terrain. It's like crazy.
Well, that's like the last descent at Crothers Lake, like that's all. It's boulder to boulder. Like you deflate your tires a little bit so you can actually grip the rock type stuff. It's
and I want to get impressive. I don't want to get off subject, but Pat, tell them that story of taking the Jeep up to Crothers, that one spot where someone almost did die.
So the next day Kelly goes up there. At some point. So I hiked so much I can't even have. Kelly came up at some point and I helped him get up there. And there's one point you go straight up over these boulders. And then I swear I saw vehicles go this other pathway. So I said, Kelly, take this other pathway to the left. And Kelly is a half an inch of falling off this ledge and falling down this mountainside. And because I am so obsessed with making this movie, I literally sit there right on the side of his vehicle where if he goes over, I'm directing him how to turn his tires. If he were to go over, I go over, you know.
I mean, that would be great press, though, right? Like, think of all the awards. The award season, they love when people die. So
it's like Spartacus.
Just knowing you guys, like, I understand why the actors would think that you guys set that up. Because if I was an actor in this, I'd be like, these assholes did this. This is for sure them. They just found like plates at a pawn shop, and this is just a bunch of people from like.
We only do that for you though.
Yeah.
Oh geez. God, I gotta put that video. J March just shared a video.
Yeah, I just threw in the group chat. Tilly just sent it to me.
Cool.
But I think that's a situation you're filming for.
Yeah, is Tilly our new research guy? He's gonna be the research guy in the back.
I think he is.
That's young Jim over there.
Hey,
I got young Jim in my corner.
Tilly's Joe Rogan's Jamie.
Yeah, we got young Jim.
What's up, young Jim?
So, anyways, so you imagine Mahoney going back to their perspective. They're up there, they hiked all day, they're hungover for the Montana bar. Anyways, but the wind's been hitting their tent the entire time. You have these load for a bunch of super safe places, liberals. You have these loads of Trump vehicles, 56 of them coming up on your little puny pussy ass tent or whatever. And so what happened was they did not sleep at all that night at all. So we get up and we have this big water scene, and they're pissed beyond pissed. And we got up and I had a scene with John, who was the lead character in the film, and we shot that scene. And I came back, and by the time I came back, I hiked up there by myself, filmed the morning scene with John, which I do like every day for the morning scene, who was in it. And Kelly was going to come up later with the food and everything for the cast later on. And so I get done filming with John, and I talked to Kelly, and Kelly looks at me and I was like, hey, so are those girls ready to go film their water scene? And Kelly's like, they're not going to do it. I was like, fuck are you talking about?
Yeah, and then we proceeded to play good cop, bad cop, because I mean it was windy, and this is September, and up there the weather's just drastically different. So it's like, fuck, if one of these actresses, or I guess actresses, falls in the water, then this film might be over, at least for that actress. It was scary stuff.
Just knock one of the leads off with hypothermia. Hey, every outdoor low budget movie has that in it.
But exactly. The truth was that the fear is way more bigger than the reality, because reality, it was really almost like 65, 70. It wasn't like it was like 30 degrees or something. But
those lakes are all glacier runoff type things. Like the water is not
cold ass.
Yeah, that is cold ass water.
So what they were on were, and I don't understand this what they were doing, because I don't really understand the boards. They're on these paddle boards and everything. So that's why they really didn't want to go in the water at all. So this is where it gets really fucking crazy. So when we were just waiting for them to get in the water, we had this this plastic rubber raft that Kelly bought for like $200 for the film, and the wind's so bad, that we're waiting for them to make up the shit and want to go on the water river. And this rubber raft is what I'm going to get in with. Someone's going to paddle me on this rubber raft, and I'm going to film from the raft and everything with the video camera. And the wind fucking hits the raft, flies it like 10 feet in the air, and it comes down. I'm like, that's not good. That's not good. So we get a patch kit, and one of our crew members, Jace Fildy, patched it together. It's like, okay, we're okay. Waiting again for the actors and actresses to get ready, and they want to film. Another wind hits the fucking raft. There's nowhere to put the raft. There's just nowhere to put it. Again, like 5-6 feet up in the air, smashes down. Another big fucking hole in the raft. They patch it up again. So then we're waiting, and then me and somebody else, I think it was Jano, we go out there and just test it out, and the raft was losing so much freaking air when we were on the lake. And I was like, let's go back to shore. This is not working. So we actually lost an entire raft waiting for them to come out and do this, because the winds up in there, like you said, the glacier, everything else, the winds up there were so bad at that time. It was just crazy.
So are we sure this was low budget? It sounds like we bought a Jeep, we bought a boat. Sounds like
sounds like multiple boats.
Well, I'll tell you this: it was the highest budget Cutler Brothers film of all time, but that's not saying too much because we haven't spent a ton of money on films in the past. But when it's all said and done, I think if you counted everything, you could probably say the film was easily close to $40,000 if you counted everything.
Yeah, it was. There's a lot of money put together to it, everything else, and eventually the good news is they got on those paddle boards. They got on them in winter coats, but according to the script, they're not from Montana, so that fit the script and everything.
Yeah. And one more comment on that raft that popped. That was actually my mother-in-law's. So I actually, after the film was done, the film bought her a brand new raft. She had a brand new raft. We popped it. So now I have 2 shitty rafts sitting in my garage.
But yeah, that was probably the highlight of the drama. After that, everything kind of calmed down a little bit. But again, it was a crazy Stanford type experiment where even after that day, so I for the audience, I just want to kind of imagine this. So you have Stonyville. Stonyville's like the base camp. Think about Mount Everest, for example. So there's a base camp and everything else. So Stonyville is the base camp. Above Stonyville, you have a split. It's like a half mile, a quarter mile above Stonyville. There's a split. Left way, you got Carruthers Lake, and there's another lake above that. The right side, you have Lower Elliott and another higher Elliott. And so these mountains are in the middle of nowhere. They're very remote. And so the next day, they come down from Carruthers. They go up to Lower Elliott, and we all camp out still at Stonyville. And these actors and actresses are still in these remote lakes they've never stepped foot in. So there was a lot of that. So the emotional breakdowns they had on that first day was not surprising. But I seriously did wonder at one point if we were actually going to be able to finish this film on the very first day.
Like the emotional breakdowns from day one, the stress, travel, hiking, because people don't realize like taking that back road, like it's a longer hike than you think it is. But like, how long were you guys up there? Was it 2 weeks?
It was if you count everything. So if you count the crew, because the crew was up there, man, we were up there. So it's great. So we shot now Mahoney and like J March, you guys would notice it in the film. Nobody else would notice it. But we shot several days stock footage of vans and stuff like that. We shot them actually arriving on the other side of the valley, the other mountains. So that was a day or two shooting that. And then we went to the other opposite side. So it depends how you count that, because one of our crew members, Jano, stayed up there with those guys that first night on the other side, and then we came back down and we went to the other side. But I mean, overall, if you want to say, we were probably as a crew up there 7 to 8 straight days camping out and just filming nonstop, pretty much.
So how are we doing in to use the cool film guy language, how are we doing in post? When are we going to be able to watch this movie?
Well, that's the other end of the story, my friend. They kind of the actors and actresses that were kind of from the liberal perspective, they kind of fucking quit the film in post production.
Okay, so that's not ideal in terms of finishing a movie. Sure. They were paid, I'm assuming.
They're actually under contract, and Kelly wrote the contract because he's a producer, and Kelly wrote a contract that it specifically said that you're going to film the movie and you're getting paid. Again, you get paid like whatever the fee is for an SAG actor, standard fee. They're getting paid to not only do the film but also do all the post production audio. And after 3 or 4 messages back in like November, they just kind of quit responding. And then I said, "Fuck it, I'm going to take over the post production audio, and your voices will be vocaled over by fucking whoever."
And you just finished the vocals today, the audio today. Is that what you said?
Yeah, so that's the craziest thing, Mahoney, is, and when you're doing an independent film, you do a lot yourself. And it was great. It was so great to have Kelly as a producer. It made a huge, gigantic difference. But at the end of the day, it's like I'm the cinematographer, I'm the director, I'm the audio guy, I'm the visual guy, and I'm the editing guy. And now I am doing vocal work for one of the lead characters in the film.
So is it like, is it going to be like pretty noticeable that you're doing it, or did you kind of make yourself like a narrator of the story in essence?
It's noticeable for only the people that know those characters. With that said, though, with a lot of the roles, it was just me and 2 other girls were doing the vocals for it. And the 2 other girls that are doing the vocals, I won't name their names, Marianne. But
It's our us. Excuse yourself.
yeah. But I would say mine, because I'm a perfectionist. I personally can tell the difference between mine and the person's voice that I'm doing, but the audience won't be able to tell. I bought audio effects and visual audio adjustment presets and all these highly technical things that make my voice sound as close to that character as possible. With that said, though, even with that said, the girl voices, both of them are so damn on target to the actual actress that even if you knew that actress, you might not be able to really tell. It's that on par.
And so I guess for the people who are listening that aren't super familiar with post and why you would be doing sound, because I think a lot of people think, hey, I filmed this movie, I say my lines, and then someone just edits it, like puts it all together, right? Like explain to people why you would need to do vocals post.
So what most people just don't freaking know is that almost every movie, not every movie, but almost every single movie. I was watching Tarantino's Inglourious Basterds, and I can tell you for a fact, because I know how to listen to audio, that I can tell you for a fact, Tarantino's Inglourious Basterds, there was obviously a lot of live audio that was recorded and used in that film. But with most films, the audio is almost all done in post-production between actors and actors. Almost every single film is done audio in post-production. So the example that I tried to teach my Alaskan kids a long time ago was like, okay, go on an airline and listen to what you can actually hear. You can barely hear people talk. You can barely hear anything. Now go watch a movie that takes place on an airline. It's pretty clear that wasn't shot live on an airline, you know? So, but the thing is, I think most movies are done in post-production. I watched the horror film, independent film, Terrifier, which had no budget whatsoever. And it was a very good film. And you can tell they did all their audio in post-production.
Yeah, and I think one of the biggest things too is making independent films. The hardest thing for most people to do is basically anything. You know, people can talk about ideas all they want, but most people don't even put a freaking word down on a page, let alone take a camera, let alone take a crew of, 7 people and a full cast out and film it. So, we're not major Hollywood millions of dollars, but the point is you got to do what you got to do to get the film off the ground. And sometimes that means you got to wear several hats. And we all do that all the time here.
And so are you going to kind of premiere it in Deer Lodge first? Or are you going to try and like go the film festival route? And then once it does whatever it does there, then roll it out in Deer Lodge? Or I guess, what are you looking for a premiere?
So what happened though, Mahoney, was Mahones, Mahogany.
Mabloni.
Mabloni.
Mr. Mabloni's here.
What happened was once the vocal actors once they all basically quit, we had to regroup, we had to get a brand new strategy together, we had to reformat everything. And what my opinion was when I came to Kelly, I said basically it's like, let's do all we're gonna do all the vocals. We were always going to do all the vocals in post-production. So what happened was I was sending them tips on how to do vocal work. They were sending me vocal work. They did a test run and then they just kind of quit or whatever. So I was like, okay, whatever. But I met with Kelly and I said, okay, we're gonna have to do the vocals myself or ourselves. And recruit people in our local community to do vocals. And once that happened, my opinion was, okay, let's try to promote this and show behind the scenes and show the entire filmmaking process and just use this opportunity to kind of delay the production almost instead of like so you notice with you're part of Mad Dad and going no original actor of Color Brothers Productions, Mark Mahoney here. Oh, sorry, Mahomes here. Jesus. It doesn't matter.
No one knows who I am. No one knows. we can edit
Hey,
that.
this is
post.
episode.
Nobody in Seattle is going to be listening to this anyways.
And that's good because that's
No one
I
in
don't live
Montana is really
Seattle,
gonna listen
so it
to
wouldn't
this.
matter. I live in Salem, Oregon.
I mean, I hope you do good with that mascot gig you got going there.
It's the best I'm just trying to get my feet wet in the acting scene out here in Oregon, and I'm busting tables out at Olive Garden and just doing my best in the mascot costume.
How stinky is that mascot costume?
Like think of the grossest thing imagine someone puked in a trash can and then put like 3 months of garbage on it, and then you had to go take the garbage out and you catch the puke like right as you're dumping it out.
So like your mascot costume, is it like a hand-me-down? Like, are you feeling someone's shoes, or is this just your own sweat and tears into this?
No, that's the nice thing. So when you work, in such a small level team, I'm fairly certain this giant dinosaur has never been cleaned out before. So yeah, you pretty much got to burn your clothes that you wear underneath it because it smells like death.
Hey, and then the next episode, Mahomes experience as a single A or double A mascot.
Yes,
Mahomes goes Surrey.
I'll tell the story. It's ridiculous, but funny for other people. I guess it's funny now for me, but wasn't at the time.
Is that the end of the story?
Yeah. Well, you said it's next episode. I'm just trying to leave a teaser, man.
Yeah, that's a cliffhanger. Come back for episode number 2.
That's how we got people in for episode 1. I'm trying to get them back. I'm leaving some bait.
Okay.
Episode 2.
I can't even
So
remember.
anyway, you said we're going to see the premiere the day before Kelly's wedding. It sounds like.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. That was what I was gonna go after. Is like with Mad Dad going over a lot of our past films. It's like we just worked our tails off to make the film, and then we had no post production strategy. We were just kind of like I gave Kelly one year. I just gave Kelly a freaking Hollywood handbook. Just like look up all these names, just start calling them. So this one, what I was trying to do though is market it every single day since they all kind of left us or whatever. But my idea is to continue to market it and try to do it almost like a Blair Witch type thing. This is based on a true story. It clearly, what we talked about tonight, it's pretty clearly it's a lot more based on true events than the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. If you guys know what that, everyone knows the Texas Chainsaw Massacre actual story. There's no chainsaw. It didn't happen in Texas.
No.
It's
Yeah.
not even.
It was like Wisconsin. Sounds
Ed
like,
Gein.
right?
Yes, it was in Wisconsin. Yes, but to sell that kind of attitude and everything else. The other thing is, as you guys know, marketing a horror film is very, I don't want to say call it easy, but you can really market a horror film to a lot of people other than a comedy drama about a girl that has an abortion at the end.
Yeah, I would say.
Yeah. What?
Certainly the abortion tie-ins a tough cherry on top of a film for sure.
Yeah, but if you watch all those old films, we can, give ourselves a hard time about the past. But I mean, Enigma was filmed. We were like in high school, I mean, this is hard stuff for even adults with, a budget to do. But me and Pat were just talking, every single film we've ever done Go Nowhere, Mad Dad, Cottonwood City Project, Kit and Pete, and now Redgate and Jesus Christ Superstar coming up. They're so drastically different. Not one of them is similar at all. And I wanted to add one thing in, Pat, that you were talking about earlier. Now it's escaped my mind. I'll circle back to it like Biden's press secretary.
So, anyways, I'm gonna circle back to Enigma. I'm gonna put Mahomes in the spot. So, not to pull up some bad memories here, but we were filming Enigma with the idea that we would have the land above the state prison. This is, for our audience here, this sounds like a completely ridiculous idea. I will say that, to say the least. But we were promised from the warden of the Montana State Prison, you would have that land. And what happened? Your dad just didn't want to give it to us anymore?
Like,
So-
let me prelude you really quick. Like, I've heard Pat complain about this for like the past 3 months. Every time we go to the Arrow, he bitches about this.
That's the least surprising thing I've ever heard. No way, Pat's holding a grudge on something that happened when we were 15 years old that was completely out of my control. No way. That doesn't sound like him at all.
Tell me here. I want to hear. We all want to hear the story for the first time from your perspective.
I mean, it's honestly, what's funny to me is it's such a long time ago that I don't super remember. Like, I just remember it wasn't going to be an issue, and then there was something about getting clearance and then needing other. So typically, I would go up on prison property, we'd go fishing, whatever. But we had, the head guy with us the whole time. So there was something about we needed, especially because apparently it ruffled some feathers that there was going to be some live recording out there for whatever reason, and we were going to have X amount of people with little to no supervision. So that's kind of where it got kiboshed, unfortunately. So it was more about security, and especially because at the time they had just started doing boot camp drills up closer to Conley Lake, for anyone familiar with the new prison area in Conley Lake out there. So from my understanding, it was security. Again, I didn't run the prison, so I don't have all the answers.
I just have a question though, just going back, just a personal question. No, so in a script though, the original Enigma script, so again, folks, Enigma was a failed horror movie. There was a lot of things. Mainly it was actually Matt Freese's Prison Pizza schedule. Oh no, Pizza Hut schedule. Because Prison Pizza destroyed Pizza Hut. Forget about that. But originally there was a script where they're gonna get on some four-wheelers and stuff. So there were four-wheelers up there and stuff in a location and things, right?
Yeah, we and maybe that was potentially part of the reason is we had gone out on Father's Day and done they use four-wheelers. So when, I guess we are going to talk about the prison a little bit. So when you're in Deer Lodge, the prison's out kind of on this giant mountain. Basically, you're right outside a bunch of acres of property. So when someone escapes, the most likely escape is they run to the mountains, because if you run in town, you're going to get caught a lot easier, right? So run to the mountains, hide it out, maybe try and walk your way towards Garrison or Butte. They obviously are in prison there. Most of them probably don't know the area that well, but they're going to do that. So there were some four-wheelers up on what is the old warden's property up on Conley Lake, which is that's intended to be a house where the warden and his family live. But once they figured out, hey, this is where inmates go to escape, it's probably not the best place for the warden and his family, right? So anyway, there's a couple four-wheelers out there just for escape attempts. There's, most of them are caught pretty quickly. So we'd gone out for Father's Day, did some fishing, and me and my brother were racing around the lake in the four-wheelers, and I wrecked one. I'm sure people are familiar with the term whiskey throttle. So I hit a rock and just kept going on it, and the four-wheeler ended up upside down in Conley Lake as we were trying to have a nice, pleasant Father's Day fishing trip with my dad. So
sorry, not to cut you off though, but so just go on your four-wheeler story. So we in Alaska, where I was working, very, very bush Alaska. This is way out there. People can imagine. They the U.S. government, the state of Alaska, they bought four-wheelers. It's called a teacher retention program. So they bought four-wheelers for these teachers in these high up villages and stuff. And one of the teachers for one of these four-wheelers, so they could use the four-wheelers to get around town and stuff. One of the teachers, one of the first days, he went out and wrecked the four-wheeler in a actual like ocean pond the very first day.
So yes, mine wasn't like that. It wasn't wrecked. It was, we tipped it over and like let it ran again. So yeah, that probably was going to be an issue too. But the fact that like, especially if we were going to use prison property like that, and we were going to have, again, little to no supervision. And there's the issue also became boot camp was going to be up by there, potentially people on camera. I don't know what, if there's laws against people like in prison on camera, or if you have to have special permission, whatever. Again, it didn't work out.
Yeah, it didn't. You made a bunch of false promises, just like Donald J. Trump. I understand.
Well, I will say, though, between all of our movies, Enigma was probably the wildest idea for a filming location until Redgate, I mean, not a lot of people are going to agree to let some high school kids film on the prison property, especially nowadays. I mean, things have changed so freaking much since 2002 or whenever we filmed that.
I just like trying one more time here. I mean, I bet the audience is totally shocked they tuned into the Prison City podcast and we're talking about the prison. I bet they're totally shocked right now.
It's not the last time.
And it probably is the last time, and it took us about an hour to get there. So thanks for sticking in.
All right, where are we going here, guys? All right, back. Enigma had basically my point though. Overall, I'd love to hear the backstory from Mahomes and everything else that happened with that film. It was a learning experience for everybody. The backstory was, me and Kelly set out, and the real story is Mahoney always will say this, and he'll say this today and every day of his life. It's like, why don't we just do a straight up comedy? That's what we're good at. Why are we doing a horror film? And so Mahoney, we did comedy on stage, comedy, theater acting, and everything else. We did a lot of fun with that. And we actually, instead of having Mahoney in a comedic role, which is a specialty, we actually had him play the villain of this horror film, which took him completely out of his regular role.
Yeah, and to Kelly's point, like acting in front of a camera is way different. When you're on stage, you have that immediate feedback of the audience, like if it's working or it's not. And to add another wrinkle to that, technically I did a small film with Kelly, like that we had to do for some sort of theater class or whatever. But this was like my first time being on camera in like a proper movie. And so to add a special wrinkle to that, I had a Safeway bag with like red food coloring on my, like I was, the bag man. There was a bloody face in the Safeway bag.
We didn't have any money. I worked at the Western Shopper. Give me a break.
Couldn't see shit. We're filming. I already have my eyes closed. I got this bag over my head. Can't see shit. We're shooting at night. It's like, so yeah, it was a good learning experience about like, this probably wasn't the best villain to have, but
what did you feel though, Mahoney? Just tell me your deep down thoughts. We went from a horror film that has nothing to do with comedy to a film about a girl getting an abortion. Go.
Well, like for me, I think that people tend to focus on the abortion, I guess rightfully so, but like the bulk of that is a comedy, the bulk of that is a comedy. I think, yeah, maybe the subject matter got a little too heavy, but it was supposed to show like, but we can also like, there's a serious side too, like a lot of Adam Sandler's shitty movies where he tries to be serious now. Like we were trying to show that there was a little bit of range there. And yeah, I mean, I guess it landed a little heavy, but I think the movie overall there's a lot more laughs than there is serious. I think that's people kind of focus the wrong thing.
I agree. Just to add on there, Mahoney is so into his part. He actually did off stage, off camera. Actually, he did actually have sex with Tina Seville during that role. So I applaud him for that.
It's method acting.
It's method acting, right? Like, and as soon as I heard the role, I just started having sex with her, and I didn't even know that was in the script. Like, I just felt like if I wanted to go nowhere, I had to be in somewhere. You know what I mean?
In someone, I believe.
Yeah.
I can vouch though for being the author of that show that, my favorite movie of all time is Mrs. Doubtfire. And it's such a brilliant movie because it's hilarious. And then it gets all sentimental. It literally puts a tear in my eye sometimes. And it's like, we are, getting a tear in our eye over Robin Williams dressing up like a fucking 60-year-old woman, How does that happen? So that was the route I was trying to go, and abortion was not the right choice.
Hey, you know what? You live and you learn, and maybe we don't make movies about abortion, and now we're not going to do that. So,
but do you remember, Mahoney, watching that down in your basement, I believe, and it was before we put any music to it, and I felt like a giant piece of shit because we were laughing our asses off, and I was like, oh my God, this is not coming across at all how I imagined.
Okay, it's not to cut anybody off here, but the most hilarious part was Kelly falls over and there's those bag of pills in his head. And Mahoney was like, Jesus! He starts laughing.
Yeah.
Well, it's like, it's kind of funny because when you're so into it, like when you're shooting the movie, you don't really think anything of it until I started watching it back. I was like, whoa, that's a bit much.
But that's what music can do for movies. We put that music track down, and again, this is we're barely in college, and just experimenting and stuff. And I thought that movie, that's some people's favorite movie, some of our family members, cult following, just like Mad Dad. So I mean, I don't think it's like a shitty movie. It's just like you put music to it, and all of a sudden people just accept it. Like, oh yeah, that was really funny, and now we're talking about abortion. Okay, no, let's roll with this.
Oh, totally. All right, now time to talk about a subject nobody else wants to talk about. What do you guys think about these reversal of the reverse of mask mandates not only in Montana, but now we have a Texas and what is it, Mississippi, Alabama,
Mississippi,
yeah.
and Alabama now reversing the mask mandates. Just provide some facts to our audience. The coronavirus, it was a 99.998% survival rate before 2020 hit. Decades of science showed that masks were not effective for seeing respiratory disease whatsoever. And now these governors are reversing these mask mandates, and people are upset about it. All right, J Marsh, go.
See, I prefer masks because, like, when I'm in the sack, I actually do like getting choked a little bit. So having it, being around my person as a day-to-day basis, I feel at home in a way. You know what I mean? Like when I'm going to buy beer, a little strangly. It's just nice.
And I kind of feel like this is really almost kind of mirroring Going Nowhere. Like we start out, we have some laughs, and then we land on a pretty heavy topic of just, what, let's get like kind of fun, and then let's just do something super political. That's kind of a
not just like super, like this is like the point of the nation right now. Like, should we wear 2 masks? Was that going to help us all?
I got Tilly here, who I nominate. Pat will be back in a second, but I nominate Tilly as our tech guy. Our Jamie off of Joe
young
Rogan.
Jim.
Young Jim,
he's older than all of us. Young Jim.
Yep.
Because he's showing me clips from like us driving up to Crothers Lake and stuff for Redgate. And, whenever we start doing video on these things, those things would be cool to show, like exactly what we're talking about. Because I took like no footage up there, and he's got some awesome freaking shots.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think young Jim, we got a spot for him. He's gonna have to learn how to like use Twitter, Instagram, the internet, the basic shit.
He's got a dictionary over here.
I'm about to show him what a computer is. Little things, but he'll get there.
Well, the states relieving the mask mandates, I am one that has always believed to each his own. I understand that there's a virus out there and things like that, but there's always going to be something that's going to kill you. And it's like, why are we killing ourselves right now or not living, just to appease a virus or whatnot? The flu is going to be here next year. I mean, in Deer Lodge alone, we had at our worst, I don't even know, 36 cases or something. And don't quote me on that. But I remember when I was teaching in school, and literally half the student body was out with the flu. That's like 250 kids. And nobody batted an eye. Nobody said, don't come to school. Nobody said, wear a mask, quarantine, stuff like that. And it's just, life is too short, and we need to protect the vulnerable, just like we always have. They're vulnerable from everything, not just COVID, but from everything. And the rest of us need to continue to live our lives and work, and build our economies and build our families and stuff.
I feel like a huge part of it, especially with COVID, it showed a vast majority of like this population is not healthy. Like the lack of vitamin D, like you got some of the countries in Europe that got hit hard, heavy vaping population. Like smoking's bad for your lungs. I'm thinking put an oil vapor in your lungs probably also is not a good idea. And it's just like the lack of that, of like how serious something like that could cause, where you get like a simple contagious pneumonia, and then next like Spain and like Italy are completely shut down because everyone 18 to 32 high vaping populations, and that's like part of it that just gets swept underneath the rug, it seems like.
We did the shutdown. Here's the thing: we did the shutdown, and we're still basically in the shutdown. It's like, how long is this going to last? Who's the person? Is it Joe Biden? Is it Donald Trump? Who's the person that says this is over? We all tried the shutdown. It's just like a school project where somebody has an idea and we say, okay, let's go with it. And after a couple of hours, let alone a couple weeks, months, it just doesn't work. It's like, when do we say enough is enough? Let's get back to living and protecting the most susceptible, which we should always do regardless of COVID or the fucking sniffles,
For sure. And it's just such a weird, like, I tend to avoid political things, and I don't like that this turned political, and it did pretty much immediately. And I'm not saying that, just like the whole back when we first called it coronavirus, right? And it's COVID now, but like, it's just whatever. Like, if a doctor tells me to do something, I'm not a doctor, I'm probably going to trust them. And for me, it's just like you said, Kelly, to each his own. Putting a mask on I don't care. It's not like I'm one of these people that's like the government's controlling my body. Like, if I have to put a mask on to go to the store and get a 12-pack of beer, fine. Like, okay, I'll be at home anyway. I prefer being at home. Like, I think the thing that's the worst part about this, outside, people are dying. Obviously, people die of a lot of things. So I just think the outside of the deaths, just the loss in business, I think, is the biggest issue. And we can't really, people have to make a living,
Well, yeah. And I'm going to add on to there, though. The truth, though, Mahoney, and I don't, you want to, Mahones, or whatever your name is, you don't want to face it, but we launched a lawsuit in federal court recently stating that if we were allowed to film on prison property, our Enigma would have made millions of dollars. That's I will agree with Mahomes on that. That is one of my craziest claims that nobody will ever support ever. but some of the coronavirus stuff is pretty insane. So let's go over to political correctness and where we're living right now. J Mars want to talk some Facebook stuff here, and when I'm on Facebook, I always go at it because I don't care. So I posted something recently about a Ted Bundy meme. On the meme, you can pull it up. It was no, you don't need to pick up line, just hit her in the back of the head. Ted Bundy. It's a funny meme, especially from the West. I had a guy in Alaska. So this is my whole point in this whole thing, is that I had a guy in Alaska who's a big shit talker. I mean, this guy was an independent contract, came up to Alaska. He could say whatever he wanted to do because nobody could really technically fire him. Big trash talker. And what I personally see, you guys contribute this. I'm not talking about family posts, not talking about we're going on vacation posts. I'm talking about virtue signaling on Facebook, where it's like, look at me, I am the most socially correct person in life. I'm defending all these social norms, and everybody knows what I'm talking about. Everybody knows it's been on Facebook. They know exactly what I'm talking about. The social norm, virtue signaling, look at me culture is so completely out of control. What do you think about that, Jay Marsh?
Well, like, for me personally, it's ridiculous because it's really hard to determine intent, because I think that's huge. Like, intent, like what does a person truly mean? And you don't get that from a Facebook post. You can't, like, even an email, like when you type out an email for a business relationship, like you have to think about what you're saying, the phrasing of it, where your period goes, where the you have to think about it. And like, you can't determine someone's intent just by letters. And this guy is like, I understand, like, I know people who've been assaulted in this way. And it's like, I know a lot of people that have gone through horrible shit, but their release is humor and saying dark, nasty shit. Like, you can't prohibit someone from having that escape from reality through humor. And that's where, like, when I brought this up earlier to you, when he's like, oh, you can't say that, well, if you know someone, it's like, shit, we all do. 1 in 4 women get assaulted like, that's what the statistics are. And then it's like, you have to allow people to be able to release that negative, dark energy. And for a lot of people, it's humor, and it's fucked up humor. And that's what annoys me about a lot of this shit. It's like, we have to go to that dark place to like laugh at it. If not, you're going to be to live a miserable life, just being all this negative shit, you know?
Yeah. And some people that are extremely close to me, like some of the closest people in my life, have gone through that dark shit and have told me about that. And they say jokes that even I wouldn't say, just like, what the fuck? Why would you say that, about their situation? So are we going to shame them about joking about what happened to them? Because it doesn't matter who you are. We've all been through tragedy, and that's just a coping mechanism. You're completely right. Not one person sits here and goes, no, I'm perfect. Nothing bad has ever happened to me. Not one person.
Yeah. So oh, sorry. Go ahead, Mahoney.
I was like, leads into this whole, like, I think social media is like a plague on society. We can talk about that later, but the cancel society, like cancel culture, is just like, as I get older, I understand more, and I've learned more about like people. Everyone's got a story, right? Everyone's gone through something. And so I probably don't say things as crazy as I would like outside of my, I might make jokes to you guys that I wouldn't make to other people because I don't know them. So I'm going to be a little more sensitive about it. But we can't, like, if someone says something and they don't know, like, it's taken out of context and then we cancel them. I mean, we got to live. Like, everyone's different. You can't just cancel someone because they don't think the same way you do. It's never going to work. That's not how this goes. You have to learn from other people.
Yeah. So something I wanted to spin to you, Mahoney, and I'm going to touch on this really quick, is like the virtue signaling and going back to our film Redgate. And I just recently kind of tried to realize this off this guy that was a big shit talker up in Alaska. Now he's a virtue signaling guy. Look at me, I'm so great, or whatever. So one of the thoughts behind Redgate was towards the end of the film, or towards the middle of the film, you might say, is the script kind of went off course, where it's like just ad lib and just be yourself and stuff. And so what we thought would happen was the actresses would end up just being themselves and saying what they would normally say. What really happened, though, and this is the incredible thing about psychology and behavior and everything else, is the actresses starting to act like they're on social media, where they're propping themselves up and giving a high virtuous vision of themselves in front of the camera. It's like, I know that's not how you fucking are. Because behind the camera, Kelly can tell you, she's talking about like bashing guys, and they're all, once I let them all go off script, they're all bashing the fucking guys in the film. Behind the scenes, she's talking to me and Kelly hiking up there about taking a fucking cock in the ass and how much she loves fucking butt sex. So I'll spin that to Kelly really quick, and I'll come back to you, Mahoney, with another thought.
Well, I think you pretty much hit the nail on the head there. But yeah, it's true. Any actor or actress that pulls out a script and says, well, this isn't how we are, this isn't how we talk, blah, 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 but then they proceed to talk that way and act that way, it's like, are we really just making this up as the authors, or is this actually how people and women and men alike talk? And it's how everyone talks. And then, I agree, just to go on film and say, no, we're not going to do that. It's more of a fear tactic. It's more of a fearful thing. Like, we don't want to show the world exactly, how we talk, when literally 90% of people out there joke like this and talk like this behind the scenes. So it's like, why the fuck don't you bring that to the forefront? Look at Family Guy and even worse cartoons. I don't watch a ton of TV, but some of the jokes on Family Guy, I'm like, how the fuck do they get away with that? But we make a joke about being gay or something, and all of a sudden we're in huge fucking hot water. I mean, this is on national syndicated TV, and they make rape jokes. You guys have all seen it, and there's far worse ones than Family Guy too. It's just like, let's get real about this, you know. It's like you can't have your cake and eat it too, you know.
Yeah, well, oh, sorry. I'll just say that's the problem with far left politics is that, like, with our film, there's the difference between being liberal politically and being liberal in your issues. Where they were so liberal politically, they're just like, this is assaulting no women. It's like, we're doing a fucking movie. It's fictional. Well, it's based on a true story, but it's fucking fictional. And that's why I'm gonna kick this to Mahoney with this question, because Mahoney works in sales and stuff. But I mean, do you not see the way that I'm seeing the world turning with social media, where everything is becoming so self-righteous, where if you were the guy in sales and you were just a guy that focused on giving and focusing on someone else's needs and what they want and what they want to do and just giving to somebody else, and how do you feel about that when it comes to like sales and marketing and everything else in today's society?
I mean, it's tough because you don't like, social media has taken people out, so you don't really know the real person if you've never actually met them, right? You don't know their backstory, you don't know what they're all about. You see however many filters they went through to find the picture they want people to see them as, right? Grow their followers, whatever you want it to be. So sales for me, like, it's such a different thing, you know. Sales, if I want people to believe me, right, as a salesperson, obviously I'm trying to sell them something I'm interested in. If I know more information about them, certainly I could angle that and kind of help the sale. But I feel like that's, I don't know, it's dirty in a way. I've made sales like that where I've kind of angled it and used information I knew about them, and I'm like, I'm not that guy. I don't want to be I don't want to be the Wolf of Wall Street guy that as soon as they hang up the phone, they have immediate buyer's remorse. I want them to, like, I want you to trust that I'm going to do the right thing for you, because the best customer is a repeat customer, right? So as soon as they hang up, if they have that buyer's remorse, they're never coming back. They're not going to say good things about you. So for me, I just try and, like, be a genuine, like, I'll take a no. I don't care. Like, that there's tens of thousands of other people I can try and sell something to. So it's fine. I'm not going to take it personal. So that's kind of a long-winded way of saying, like, you could, if you wanted to, do quick research on someone and see what they're all about and pump them up full of total BS and probably reel them in, but you're not going to feel good about it. And they're going to be like, oh, 10 seconds later thinking, boy, I should probably get a refund, but I need to put on Instagram that I got this cool new thing for people to see.
I only shoot the J March really quick here. What do you think about the fakeness and everything on social media these days and reality or whatnot?
Well, it's amazing. Just like even on Twitter, you go through and like how many bots there are of just like random people shit posting. Like, I'm pretty sure my one Twitter page, I have so many followers, but I guarantee you at least 15% of them are just random ass bots. Like, other than that, like, it's really hard with social media to determine what's real, what's fake, like who a person is, who they're not, what they're playing to be. Like, I know my Instagram is just a whole bunch of pretty pictures of grass. Like, it's not impressive. But I don't know. It's just crazy in the modern times of how important Twitter is to a certain segment of the population.
And so what kind of grass are we talking? Are we talking Kentucky blue?
Yes. Kentucky blue, some creeping bank
nice
grass. No, we have
nice. That sounds like a pretty overly sexual Instagram you have, sir.
The fact you actually named more than one type of grass, I'm impressed. Actually mildly turned on.
Thank you.
But
All right, guys, we're going to come down here. We're going to start to wrap things up here. It's been a very fun opening show, a ton of fun. Where this is going, I want to go off on masculinity versus feminism and all these different things I've been reading about recently and studying. But that is too much for this final.
On next week, which of us is a transvestite?
Yeah. But what I want to go off next week is a lot of fun stuff. It could go very, very deep. We had very, very deep conversations about it, relationships, man versus woman, man and woman relationships, homosexuality relationships, masculinity, femininity, a lot of crazy things. I want to tackle that next week, and we're going to branch off from there. But with that finishing up, this episode was overall about Redgate and horror films. We never talked about a bunch of horror films. Let's just wrap this up really quick and go around the table here, starting with Kelly. What was your favorite horror film? Not growing up, but just your favorite horror film overall that you very much remember.
Oh man, you're putting me on the spot because I love horror films almost as much as comedy. Actually, probably more than comedy, to tell you the truth. Horror films just, they give you such a unique sense of like humanity, like a dark, dark sense. And for some reason, that's just been doing it for me lately, you know. And but the one that jumped to my mind when you said that was People Under the Stairs, which is Wes Craven, right?
Yes.
Yeah, because I just remember watching that, and I don't know when it came out. I was in junior high, freshman in high school, something like that. And we didn't know what it was about. We just started watching it, and that's one of the only films that I went to bed that night, and I could not sleep because I thought I was hearing people running through our walls and shit, and it was just so fucked up. So,
oh, sorry, not to cut you off, Kelly, but as my memory recalls it, me and you and Matt or whoever are. We watched only like part of it. We watched like the first 15, 30 minutes of it. So we never actually saw the whole film. So yeah, I went to bed feeling the exact same thing.
Well, and it was the edited version. It was like on TBS or some shit. So for that film to do that to me, and then I started thinking like, well, what are they cutting out? Because I know like from the Friday the 13th series and Freddy Krueger and everything, we grew up with that, and they cut so much shit out, and it drove us nuts. Like, come on, show them, bash this fucker's head in, you know? And so that just kind of, the mystery there killed me. Like, if they're only showing this, what are we missing? Some people think that's a frivolous, stupid movie, but I mean, at that age, teenager, whatever, it scared the fuck out of me.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. We'll go down to Mahoney on your thoughts of your favorite horror film ever.
I too love horror movies. You know, I like all the like Friday the 13th, the Jasons, the Hellraiser, like kind of that stuff. My favorite one though, the one I remember, like I think it came out in like 94, 95. I want to say 95. Scream, the very first Scream. I remember thinking like that movie, I liked it. I've seen it a few times just because I think it's like a good show. And yeah, I mean, it scared me. The scariest movie, I was staying over at my friend's house and I was like 6. And his dad had us watch Pet Sematary. That's the like that movie scared the shit out of me as a 6-year-old. But Scream, I love Scream. That first original Scream, it's easily my favorite horror movie.
And J Mars, what about you?
Well, like for me, it's like being way too young on the Sci-Fi Channel watching Leprechaun and Jeepers Creepers.
Leprechaun, love it.
Well, like there's a scene like there's like in one of the later ones where like they're trying to run away from him, and the guy's just grabbing random shoes and just chucking it at him because the leprechaun had to clean all the shoes before he chased him. I don't know, just something about the little guy that just like appears out of nowhere. It's always scared the shit out of me. Like, granted, I watched it when I was way too young. Then Jeepers Creepers, when he falls down the tunnel. Granted, it's half of it now. Like I watch it, and it's a comedy. It's hilarious, but it is like an 8-year-old kid. It's like the scariest shit in the world to you.
Mahomes, I just want to say one thing about Pet Sematary because it's kind of a funny story. I've never seen Pet Sematary until like a year and a half ago. I walk in and my now fiance was watching Pet Sematary, and I was pretty fucked up from the bar, and I think I'd taken some weed edibles and shit. And I sat down, and she loves Lifetime movies, right? So I sat down, and I thought it was like some romantic, weird Lifetime movie. And then all of a sudden that scene came on where like they knock over the coffin and shit. And it pretty much fucking horrified me. It's like, what is going on?
Yeah, you're probably like in your drunken, stoned mindset. You were probably like me as 6-year-old, so it probably like landed the same way.
Exactly.
Yeah. So anyways, last round table we're gonna have here tonight is Redgate. Again, this the main beef of this conversation was talking about Redgate. We spent a lot of time on that. And essentially though, here's the truth about Redgate. Redgate is very much an artistic, crazy, bizarre, weird film where it almost is like tries to put you in the actual atmosphere. And a lot of people out there, because again, all of us in this round table, we've all grown up in Montana. We've all seen the scenery. We all have seen all of Montana's offer. And again, with my conversation today with another podcaster is not knowing anything about Montana, like there's cowboys and stuff like that. So the film itself has a very unique look to it. Um, it's just a very bizarre open scenery film. And I'll say to everybody this question, I'll start with Kelly. It's like, how do you feel about a film that's it's not going to be the typical big scare, like constant big scare themes out of everywhere constantly. It's going to be very much more artistic. It's going to be very bizarre. It's going to be very weird feeling, wide scope lens. It's going to be wide open spaces. It's going to have that weird, eerie feeling, but you're not going to have the scares. You're not going to have the big, gory scenes right up front. How do you feel about that as a film and as a horror film, horror fan? How do you feel about that?
Well, I'm pretty biased because, producing the film, being involved with the film, and then I've seen it 3 times from start to finish, and but honestly, in this day and age, I feel like anything that is watchable goes. And I feel like you hit the nail on the head once again, where people want to sit there and have an experience nowadays. And I prefaced Redgate with the Stanford experiment, like we talked about, and Elephant. And there's a scene in Elephant where this high school kid is walking across the lawn of the high school, and it goes on for literally like 2.5 minutes. And not once did I go, okay, move it the fuck along. Again, I'm 35 years old, so maybe it varies by age group. Maybe older people wouldn't like it, maybe younger people wouldn't like it. But right where I am at this current age, I feel like that is the way to go. I call it an IMAX movie. If you put this in IMAX and you can be out camping with your friends, watching this, watching the campfire, watching the lake and the water and skipping rocks, which is the first hour of the movie, I think people, a huge majority of people are going to eat it up, especially with, I hate to go there, but with pot becoming legal, weed becoming legal in several states, so many people just want to sit there and relax and chill out and drink a beer and just have you take them away. They're not all about, I guess horror movies sometimes are a little bit stressful for me sometimes, because it's just like, okay, fuck, it's just constant boom, boom, boom in your face, which is great sometimes, but other times you want an experience. So I truly think that it's a great idea. I think it's going to be a new genre of movie once it starts going, just like the IMAX theater.
And Mahoney, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I'm excited to see it. I like a mix of both. Sometimes it's good to have that jump scare out of nowhere. I think it can be overdone for sure, but something like a long build, right? Like that long suspense that you're just you're always there. You kind of have to pay attention for it, and you're picking up clues on what might be coming. I love that sort of stuff. So I'm excited to see it. I know pretty much not all that much about it. I generally know what you guys got going on, so I'm excited to see a finished product.
All right, and Jay Marsh.
I'm excited to see it as well, but because jump scares, they're nice, like when you're on a day in the movie theater, but if I'm just gonna be chilling with the boys drinking beer, you want the suspense. You want to almost predict what happens before it happens, and kind of talk shit when the movie's going on, try to figure out figure out who's going to die next, little things like that. It's fun, exciting. Makes you feel like you're there.
Yeah, totally. So I mean, so one last question for everybody is we talked about some very serious stuff here about a quadruple homicide back outside Deer Lodge a couple of years ago, and there's there's a bunch of stories about meth heads in Deer Lodge and people freaking out. Do you think? I mean, the Blair Witch Project was based on false information. The Chainsaw Massacre was based on a bunch of false information. Do you feel that that's appropriate to kind of make a film that's based on actual true information? Kelly?
I think everything's appropriate. I'm pretty hard pressed when it comes to finding something that I find offensive. But I mean, that's what cinema is supposed to do for us, is make us move and see things that we don't normally see in our normal lives. That's why people go to the movies, because they I mean, none of us have really seen anybody's head chopped off, in the basement of our house. That's why we fucking watch it. So I think that pretty much, anything is appropriate, as long as it's not, pornographic. I guess that's where I draw the line.
Yeah, not a snuff film, not pornographic. By the way, there is a Ethan Hawke film. It was called Sinister. When it got to the snuff film theme, I actually couldn't go on with it. It was just too crazy for me. But with that said, I did make a horror film based on true events. How do you feel about that, Mahoney?
I mean, a lot of people like the true event stuff. Usually they're not, horror related, but there's, like you said, there's plenty of them out there. There's Amityville Horror. There's like 100 movies on that, right? So if it's a compelling story, people will want to watch it. So make it, right? Like, that's, to Kelly's point, people want to see what they haven't seen before. And it's a compelling story. It's a sad story. Certainly, the actress that was supposed to do that's a tragedy, but that's not the main piece of your movie, like you said, but I don't think it's a bad thing by any means. If it's a good story, tell the story.
All right, and Jay Marsh, before you fall asleep, how do you feel about that?
To piggyback on there is like saying it's based on a true story, but very loose events. It adds to like the mindset going into the movie. You're going to like imagine more things. You're going into the theater because you're like, oh shit, maybe this is real. Maybe it's not. Like, it makes you think a little bit more, and then like you want to be there. You want to experience it. So it leads like you're just like leaving breadcrumbs for someone to eat as they go into the theater, just like ready to eat the whole like meal.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Again, the film is pretty straightforward. It's based on true events. They're sad events that happen. It's up front. It goes through everything at the very beginning. It's a very crazy film. It's going to be a very good film. It's going to be one of the best horror films ever released to this country and the world. And people are going to be very interested in Durage after that. But anyways, I'd like to thank everybody to come on the show tonight. Again, we're the Prison City Podcast. Check us out, subscribe. We're on YouTube. We're going to keep going forward here with this. We did touch on the prison at one point. That's not the point of the podcast, but it is the Prison City Podcast. And the prison pretty much, the reason it's called the Prison City Podcast is because the prison tried to stop Cutler Brothers Productions from being successful.
Yes, I think when you look back and someone makes a based on true events movie about Cutler Brothers, the Montana State Prison will certainly be the villain of that movie.
Anyways, this is a lot of fun. The first podcast got a little too serious there for a little bit. Doesn't fucking matter. Who cares? No one's listening.
As soon as they started talking COVID-19 and you spouting your bullshit, people turn it off. So hopefully they'll come back next week.
Hey, Jay Marsh, can you get out of my basement now?
No, I live here now. This is mine. I take it.
Hey, next week's conversation will be controversial at all. We're talking about transgenders in sports and masculine and femininity. Would not be controversial at all.
Can we 4 weeks we get the aliens?
Can we have some sort of fun conversation there too? Or can we work in something not as?
Can we talk about Tom Brady for a while, like the Buccaneers? Nice.
Yeah.
We will have a much funner conversation next week.
Yeah, it was fun doing my first and last podcast ever.
It was all fun for us to tell ourselves the worst experiences of our entire lives that are so traumatic. All right, guys, it's been fun. Next week, we're going to actually tackle some fun stuff.
All right, next week, investments. Let's do this.
All right, Bill Gates, fast sayings next week. Let's go. That's the end of the podcast, guys. Thank you for tuning in this week. We'll see you next week for more bullshit. Goodbye.
Deuces.